Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Museum Munchkins. My name is Mr. Nick, and today we are talking all about this animal, the eye. And we're going to start off by singing an eye song if you want to stand up on your feet. All right, now this song is called The Eye in the Forest, and it sounds a little bit like the wheels on the bus, but we're going to do some different actions since we're going to be pretending to be some eyes living in the forest during this song. So we're going to listen for the instructions while we sing our song and see if we can follow along. Are you ready? All right, let's go. The eye in the forest goes tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. Tap, tap, tap. The eye in the forest goes tap, tap, tap. Looking for its food. The eye's teeth go crunch, crunch, crunch. Crunch, crunch, crunch. Crunch, 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 the eye's teeth go crunch, crunch, crunch to make a little hole. The grubs in the tree scream, ah, watch out! Ah, watch out! Ah, watch out! The grubs in the tree scream, ah, watch out! The eye looks hungry. The eye with its finger goes scratch, 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 scratch. The eye with its finger goes scratch, scratch, scratch to scoop up all the grubs. The eye eats the grubs, says, that's good, that's good. That's good. The eye eats the grubs, says, that's good. I love to eat the grubs all day. Very good. Thank you so much for singing that song with me. I'm going to set my guitar down now so we can talk all about the eye. Let me hold up that picture for you again so you can see a little bit better. Have you ever seen an eye before? So eyes are really interesting animals that live only in one place around the world. They are only found over here on this island off the coast of Africa called Madagascar. Have you ever heard of that island before? You might have heard of that island, and Madagascar is the island that eyes call home, along with all of their relatives, the lemurs. So eyes are actually a type of lemur that lives in Madagascar, one of over 100 different types of lemurs who all live on Madagascar, but it's very different from the other lemurs that we find there. And you might have heard of some other lemurs before, like the ring-tailed lemur that has rings around its tail, or the red tufted lemur that's got red tufts of hair on its head. But the eye, we're not actually sure where it got its name from, but some people say that eye is a local word in Madagascar that means, I don't know. So the ring-tailed lemur got its name because of what its fur looks like, and so did the red tufted lemur. But when people saw the eye, they went, oh, I don't know about that one. And that's where we think it got its name. And lemurs are primates, just like monkeys and chimpanzees, and actually, like us, we're primates too. Humans are primates too. So we're actually distantly related to animals like the eye. Now, eyes are the largest nocturnal primates in the world. Have you ever heard that word before? Nocturnal? Nocturnal is a word that means that they're most active at night. They're animals that are most active at night, and then they spend most of their day sleeping. and being inactive. So we're not nocturnal. Sometimes we might stay up late sometimes, but humans are awake and things during the day, but not eyes. Eyes like to sleep during the day and they wake up at night when they go out to look for their food. And when I say the biggest nocturnal primates, that might make you think that these are really large animals, but in fact, they're pretty small, only about 3 feet long, and that includes their tail, which is about half of the length of their body. So they're kind of small, and they have a really long, bushy tail on their bodies. And they only weigh about 4 pounds. So they're not very big animals at all. And since they come out at night, they do something, you might have guessed with these big, giant ears on their head, they do something that some other nocturnal mammals do. Bats, they use echolocation to help them find food in their environments, but also to help them find and move around from branch to branch. They're pretty interesting animals, and they need that special help because they are arboreal. That's another big word. Can you say that word with me? Arboreal. Yeah, and arboreal means that eyes are animals that live up in trees. They spend most of their time up in trees. Can you think of any other animals that might be arboreal? Maybe animals around where we live, here in Kenosha? We have some arboreal animals around here, like squirrels spend a lot of their time up in trees, right? Yeah, so we might call squirrels arboreal too. Even though they spend some time down on the ground looking for food, they spend a lot of time up in the trees. And they like to make their nests, eyes like to make their nests in trees right where the branches of the trees come together, where it's really strong and sturdy. And they make a little nest that's kind of like a globe, kind of like a ball. And that's what they sleep in during the day to protect themselves while they sleep from other animals that wander around during the day who might like to find them. So the eye is an omnivore. Omnivores are animals like humans that eat meat and plants. So eyes really love to eat grubs, like we talked about in our song. So they like to eat insects, but they like to eat plants too, like seeds and fruit. Do you like to eat fruit? Yeah, and actually, I just made some pumpkin seeds at home after I carved a jack-o'-lantern for my porch. So I like to eat seeds too, just like an eye. But they also like to eat fungi, like mushrooms, and they like to drink the nectar from flowers, and they like to eat honey when they can find it. Do you like to eat honey too? Sometimes I like to put honey on toast or in my tea in the morning. Yeah, I like to eat honey too sometimes. And they're really good at finding food, and that's actually one of the most interesting but also kind of weird things that they do. And they find their food with a special finger on their hand and those big giant ears. I've got a picture of their hand. I'm going to bring a little bit closer so we can see. So this is what an eye's hand looks like. So just like our hands, if we look, it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 fingers on its hand, but this third finger, the 1, 2, 3, is really long and skinny. It's very, very thin, and they don't have very many muscles in that finger. But that finger is on a ball and socket joint, just like our shoulders, so they can move their finger all the way around, all over the place. And they use that special third little finger for tapping on trees, looking and listening for hollow places where insects might be hiding underneath the bark. And then when they hear a hollow space in the tree, they'll use their long, sharp teeth for chewing a hole in the tree, so then they can reach that finger inside and try to grab and pull all the insects that are living inside that, so then they can eat them off their finger and gobble them up. That's one of the things they like to do. And they spend about 40% of their time doing that. So they spend a lot of time climbing around through trees and knocking on the branches and listening for holes where insects might be living. And like I said, then they chew a hole with their teeth, and they have long, sharp teeth at the front of their mouth, which even though they're primates, their teeth are kind of like a rodent's teeth because they never stop growing, so they stay really sharp and help them chew those holes in the branches of trees. So some people think that their fingers are kind of long and weird and creepy a little bit, which I agree. I agree their hands kind of look a little bit creepy, but those long, skinny fingers are really important for helping them find their food. Now the eye is actually an interesting animal for another reason, and that's because humans used to think the eye was extinct. They thought it already went extinct about 100 years ago. They thought it went extinct and there weren't any more of them around. Have you ever heard that word before? Extinct? So extinct is when there are no more of one type of animal alive on our planet anymore. So a really good example of an animal that's extinct that you might have heard of is an animal like Tyrannosaurus Rex. Tyrannosaurus Rex is extinct because we don't have any of those animals that live on our planet anymore. And the eyes, they thought used to be extinct, but then actually they found some of them, and luckily they are not extinct anymore, but they are in danger of going extinct. So we call them endangered because their populations are getting smaller and smaller. And some of the reasons that they're going extinct, that they're endangered, is because humans are using the environment, the forest where they live. They're chopping down trees to build things or make room to build things. But also, they like to scare the eyes away and get rid of them because they think that they're really scary or that they're bad. It's bad luck to see an eye. So a lot of people who live in Madagascar don't really like it when they see an eye. And in fact, I have got a story today that we're going to read that talks about exactly that, about some people who don't really like to see the eye in their village. And this book is called Eye Gets Lucky. It's written by Terry Tatchell and illustrated by Ivan Solima. Eye was a lemur who had to duck and hide whenever all the people woke and filled the land outside. Because he caused some trouble, they wouldn't soon forget. See, Eye loved to pull big pranks with almost no regret. He used his creepy hand to scare the young ones and the old. They saw it as a monstrous beast, horrific to behold. He'd skulk around and wait for them to settle down to eat, then slip his creepy hand up close beside them on their seat. And oh, how it pleased him to see those people squeal, and as a bonus, more than not, he'd huck their yummy meal right at him in his face or mouth. He didn't even care. See, Eye loved good people food, his payment for their scare. But then one day he went too far. Some people called him lout, said he was evil and bad luck, and then they cast him out. The word spread far that he was bad, unlucky to behold. A law was passed to keep him out, and fearful tales were told. He had no choice. He had to hide and spend long days alone. I miss the people and their food, Eye would softly moan. So Eye set to thinking to make himself a plan to win the hearts and trust again of villagers and clan. But all that he could find were pranks, nasty stuff to make them scared or jumpy, and his hand, that made it rough. It's not my fault I'm born that way. I think they are rude to banish me and never share their very yummy food. So I felt a little mad and vowed to run away. He'd find new friends who liked his jokes and wanted him to stay. But as he went, a monster swooped. It came without a sound. He was so scared, he wet himself and pooped upon the ground. The monster stopped and said, "Hello." A flying fox was she. "I mean no harm to you. In fact, I'm here to help, you see." "I do not see," the aye screamed. "Why would you scare me so? That wasn't nice to feel such fright. I think that you should go." The flying fox just smiled at him. She really meant to help. "I pulled a prank on you tonight so that you would scream and yelp and see just how those people feel. You scared them to their core and took delight in their spilt food and ate it off the floor. Pulling pranks can be such fun until you really see the way it feels to be so scared is dreadful as can be." The aye stepped away from her, but mostly off the poop. "I do see now, I make them sad. I jump through any hoop. If I could only find a way to have them as my friends, but there's a law that I'm bad luck, too late to make amends. My hand, it means they're scared of me, no matter what I try. It's terrible to look at, and sometimes it makes them cry." The flying fox held up her paw. It looked almost the same. The aye jumped. He was surprised and felt a little lame. "I thought I was the only one who had a creepy hand. Are you also feared and banished forever from their land?" "No, I'm not, because I make a point to make their lives ideal. I eat mosquitoes from the air. They're quite a tasty meal. I keep people safe from danger. Mosquitoes bring disease and make them sick or itchy. Really, it's a breeze. So find a way to help them. Even use your creepy paw. Spread good luck and happiness. They'll change their bad luck law." The aye said his thank yous and turned to face his fears. He'd find some way to win their love. Should he resort to tears? No, not tears. It needs to be a nice thing that I do that makes them feel some happiness. He knew his words were true. He waited in the bushes and watched them for a month. When suddenly he saw his chance to save a baby's lunch. Her mother wasn't watching as she threw her food around, and most of it had rolled beneath a boulder on the ground. He ran up fast and smiled at her. "I'm here to help, don't shout," and used his longest fingertip to get those food bits out. He placed them on the plate for her. She smiled in gratitude, then held his ghastly finger tight and even shared her food. That mother, she came running and screamed in deadly fear. She knew it was a scary thing to have an aye near. But then she saw her daughter, who held his hand so tight. The aye's face was filled with love. This law just can't be right. Aye could only mean good luck. His love is crystal clear. So that mother stopped the people as they ran and gathered near. One look and they could also see the error in their ways. And from that day on, they made a law, the aye always stays. The end. Well, that aye liked to pull pranks on people, and that caused a little bit of trouble for him. But in the end, he was able to make some amends and actually got to help out those villagers, and they weren't scared of him anymore. I liked that. All right, so today we are going to be making a pretty fun craft, I think. We're going to be making a little aye puppet, a little aye shadow puppet. And we're going to have this shadow puppet up on our website a little bit later so you can download it and cut it out for yourself and make one at home. And while we make our puppet today, we're going to answer some of your questions. So for this craft, you're going to need our aye puppet printout. Something to color with. I'm going to use some colored pencils. some scissors, some tape. We're going to need some brass brads. These are going to help our puppet move around. And I think I'm going to need 1, 2, 3 of them. And we're going to need something to hold onto our puppet with. You could use sticks or chopsticks, or I'm going to use some straws because we have a bunch of straws here at the museum that I could use. So I'm going to use these drinking straws, I think. So first thing first, I need to cut out 1, 2, 3, 4 parts of my puppet. So I'm going to start doing that, and while I cut out my puppet, I'm going to answer some of your questions. So Elle wants to know if eyes feel soft. Ooh, that's a good question. We didn't really talk about what an eye's fur looks like. So eyes are covered with lots of long, rough, shaggy fur. But underneath that is some softer fur too. So if you got to the softer fur underneath, they might feel a little soft to pet. Or if you part of their body that didn't have a lot of hair on it, then they might feel kind of soft to pet. But otherwise, they have lots of long, rough hair on their bodies that wouldn't feel very soft if you were to pet it. But since eyes are wild animals, we should usually, if we see them in the wild, which if you're ever in Madagascar and you see one, we should just observe them from a distance and not get close enough to feel how soft their fur might be. So that's a very good question. All right, what's another question? Aaron wants to know if they have any animal friends. That's a good question too. So eyes are actually solitary lemurs. So they don't spend a lot of time with other lemurs or with other eyes or with other animals in general. They spend a lot of time by themselves, sleeping in their nests or looking for food. But sometimes, if another eye happens to come around their area where they live, looking for food, they will maybe spend some time with that eye and hang out a little bit, but they usually like to spend most of their time by themselves. So, and we don't really have that I know of, even though in our book there was a flying fox who made friends with the eye. I don't know that happens in real life. I think that was just part of the story that we read, that the flying fox became friends with the eye. Now, there's lots of little hairs on this that I could cut out, which if I were to make this into a shadow puppet, so I could put a light behind it while I was using it and playing with it, it could make some shadows. All those little spiky hairs that are drawn on this template might look kind of fun and interesting with the light shining through, or making some interesting shadows. So I'm going to see if I can cut out some of those too, as I'm cutting around the outside of these lines to cut out my little eye puppet. And then you'll notice too, as you're cutting these out, there are some little dots on the pieces of the puppet that I'm cutting out, and those are where we're going to stick our brass brads, and that's going to help make our puppet move. All right, now I'm at the last part of my puppet, which is the hardest part. It's hand, because it's got all those little fingers, and I want to make sure, since I want to kind of turn mine into a shadow puppet too, I have to make sure to cut out each one of those fingers by themselves. So if you just want to make yours a regular puppet, you could just cut around the outside of all of those fingers and not have to worry about going down with your scissors in between each of the fingers, because that's kind of hard to do. And you might need a little bit of help if that's how you want to cut out your finger or your puppet. Especially that third finger, because it's so long and skinny. I just have a couple more. And it's part to that long, skinny finger. Like I said, it doesn't have a lot of muscles in it, but it does have a lot of nerves in it. That helps it to. Those are things in our body that helps us feel things when we touch them. And it's got a lot of nerves in it, so it can when it reaches in to holes that it chews in the sides of trees, it can sort of feel for insects, and feel if there's anything crawling around in there. I've almost got all of mine cut out. Perfect. And there we go. All right, now I've got all my pieces cut out. Now I'm going to use some of my colored pencils to color in my eye. Now eyes can be, you can make your eye whatever color you want. I know that eyes in the wild, they have some brownish fur and some tannish colored fur, but a lot of darker black fur on their bodies. So I'm going to see if I can find, there's my black colored pencil, if I can color in, especially their ears. Their ears are kind of made to have like a dark black skin on them. So I'm going to make sure to color their ears that color on here. Ooh, but I'm going to leave the little hair bits on the ears so I can color those in a different color. I'm just going to color that hair. Oh, and then I'm going to color its hands this darker black color too, I think. Sometimes when I color projects like this, I like to draw or color my things so that they look just like the animal would look in real life. But that's always not always the most fun thing to do.